Hey everybody, Kevin here for WranglerForum.com. Well, as you can see, I got the Jeep in the garage because we are going to be installing a product for a review today. And that product comes to us from Quadratec.com. They have sent over one of their JK aluminum gas tank skid plates. It's 6 millimeters thick, it's made of 50-52 aluminum, and installs over your existing factory tank. It also only weighs 37 pounds, so you're not adding a ton more weight to one of these already heavy elephants. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a closer look, and then I'll show you how it installs. Here is the plate itself. As you can see, it is a silver plate. It's got a textured powder coat on it. There's some drain holes, both higher and lower on it. And it has a couple bumpers here to go ahead and put a space between it and the gas tank itself. And this installs over the existing gas tank, as I said, and reuses the hardware from that tank. You do have a couple of brackets they want you to add, so we'll see how that works as well. I'm going to go ahead and lift this side of the Jeep up a little bit to give myself a little more working room, and then we'll show you how it goes on. Tools for the install are pretty simple. You'll need a 17 and an 18 millimeter socket, of course a ratchet, and then later in the process we will need to go ahead and use a torque wrench. Alright, I got a safety jack in place here, got a little bit more height to the Jeep to give me a little bit more work room. And again, this is the factory skid plate. Mine's got a few little minor nicks and dings in it, a couple dents, things like that. But if your factory skid plate is not in good condition, it may not permit the new skid plate to fit over top of it. So be sure to inspect that. If you've got any corners that are flattened down, go ahead and take it off. Again, be careful because this tank will drop without the skid plate in place, and then straighten out those corners or edges as best you can. According to the directions, one of the first things we want to do is go ahead and remove the factory bolt from the inside rear of the tank, and then we're going to be using the first of one of these brackets, and this bracket is going to go ahead and slide up and in. This is going to go against the tank. There's a recess you'll see when you go to do this. The top hole is going to be for where the new hardware goes, and then down here you've got a welded nut which is going to be used to attach to the new skid plate. So let me get the factory fastener out and then we'll put this in place. I should also note that it does come with a spacer, and I believe that spacer goes on this one or the other bracket. We'll find out as we go along. I went ahead and put the spacer on this back one. I think this is where it goes. The instructions actually don't call it out. I'm hoping this is the right spot, but you can see that just fits nicely inside of there. Not a ton of room between it and the drive shaft to work, but you'll be fine. The bolts come out relatively easy. Second bracket bolt location coming out. Going back up with the bracket. So the instructions next call for you to go ahead and remove the additional bolts. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove them in stages, or loosen them rather, so I can go ahead and drop down the factory skid plate. I'm going to get these front two here, then I'll move along down correspondingly, because what I want to do, again you can see I've got a hydraulic jack supporting the weight of the skid and the gas tank. What I want to do is then use the ratchet strap to go ahead and go between the tank and the factory skid to help support it in two locations. Then I can go ahead and remove the hydraulic jack, get the new skid up and in, and then secure everything down. At least that's the plan for right now. Once you have these front bolts down a little bit, you'll be able to go ahead and slide a ratchet strap in like I've done here, securing it out here to the rock rail, and then it's going to obviously loop between the gas tank and the skid, and then over here I've got it up on another frame, or I guess body support up there, and that's holding the front of this on. So I'm going to go ahead and work on getting the other bolts out and getting the second ratchet strap in. I ended up using 3 ratchet straps, one in the front, one in the middle, and then one towards the back of the tank. And the middle one and the back one I just ran on the outside of the tank. See how that works out. Should be able to loosen them up is my goal once the new skid plate goes on, and then pull the straps out of there. Right now I'm going to go ahead and loosen the hydraulic jack and make sure that these straps are working okay. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, good. Lower that down all the way, and then we'll go ahead and put the new skid in. Alright, I'll lift it up. Let's see how she does here. Let's let me scoot a little forward. So far everything's lining up, it looks like. That is good. Enough room here to get it close enough to get the front one started. I'm just going to snug these in just a little bit. I still might have to move the rest of them, but just enough to help secure the front of this a little better. That's good. There we go. And then we'll work on the second set. For the transfer case skid plate, the bracket, as you can see, goes between the factory skid and the new one, and then just snug it up. As you guys can see, it is installed. It's in there loosely. I've still got to tighten down a few of the bolts. A couple installation notes on this. I actually brought in, you can kind of probably see it in the background here, a second hydraulic jack to help even out everything. The instructions say for you to go ahead and leave the 2 bolts that are on the brackets we put in last. That wasn't working out for me. The holes weren't lining up properly, so I went ahead and loosened everything down to where all the other bolts just had maybe a thread or 2 or 3 threads in there, just a couple turns. And then that allowed me to bring it down evenly, and then I was able to get the 2 brackets lined up. And now I'm going to go back and get everything. The only one I'm still not 100% sure on is the far outside one by the passenger side tire. It's kind of a funky bracket. I think, convinced now that's where that spacer goes, but we'll have to see. I may need to go get a longer bolt for it. So we'll see. But let me get the rest of these tightened down. Up here also, the one that is in the middle, the smaller bracket, you're not going to be able to get a socket wrench in there to get it unless you remove the rear drive shaft. So I'm going to go ahead and use a box end wrench and tighten that down with a couple ugga-duggas. The rear big bracket shouldn't be a problem at all. You should be able to get in there and torque everything down properly. So let me get a few more things done here, and then we'll check out that rear outer position bracket hole. First and foremost, yes, this is where that spacer is going to be used. Let me go ahead and share some wisdom on you now that I've installed this to hopefully save you some time and frustration. When you're going ahead and test fitting everything, pay particular attention to this rear location, how it lines up. As you can see, the factory skid plate is curved or radiused, and the new tab is not. So there's a really tight tolerances between these two, and if you don't have it lined up just perfectly, they're not going to fit together right. That being said, this is one of the reasons you need that spacer to take up that space. I unfortunately didn't pay too close attention to this rear area because everything else was lining up really well. That being said, I had to go ahead and remove some material from the tab, and then I had to also enlarge the hole, both in the new skid plate and a little bit on the existing factory skid plate. Don't make the same mistake I did. Start here first, and you should have a much smoother installation. Here is the rest of the skid plate to give you an idea of what it looks like. And I think at this point we need some testing, so let's hit the trail. On the trail, as you can see right now, down here in the state of Kentucky on the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway. Got a few friends with me, as you can see in the background, so hopefully this will be a good test of how that new gas tank skid plate's going to work. Most of the trails we ran offered a mix of smaller challenges and scenic views, which certainly permitted the group to make steady progress throughout the day. The route is geared towards more stock-sized vehicles, though I did find a couple of spots that resulted in some minor skid plate contact with some rocks. It's important to enter and exit any stream crossings at the designated points for doing so. Overall, this was a really fun day on the trail. Some final thoughts on this. Overall, I think this is a worthwhile upgrade to your Jeep. The gas tank is a large area underneath the vehicle that, let's face it, if you're going to hit something, it's probably going to be on the gas tank. Adding this skid is going to give you, additional peace of mind. It's going to give you additional protection down there to a potentially vulnerable area. That being said, the trails we went on in the footage, yeah, they weren't super tough by any means at all. But it gave me an idea if those rocks had been bigger, yeah, this thing would have done a really good job of helping protect that gas tank. Yes, I did have to go ahead and modify it a little bit in my particular installation, but I've now given you some insight on how to avoid that, and I'm sure yours will go much smoother than mine did. Side note on that, when you're cutting aluminum, unlike steel that sparks everywhere, aluminum doesn't do that. It creates a fine little powder, so having a mask on, probably a pretty good idea. Thus, I'm going to go ahead and leave the link to the product down below. You can check it out on your own, see what you think, and see if it might be something you want to add to help protect your Jeep. Anyway guys, until next time, this is Kevin for WranglerForum.com, and I'll see you on the trail.